First he blusters, then he blinks. That's how our next guest describes President Trump's wartime strategy with Iran. Most recently, Trump had planned on conducting more strikes over the weekend and then changed his mind.
I'd rather make a deal because I don't want to kill people. We were all set for the biggest attack since World War II, and they called me and they said, please don't do it. Let's talk.
And consider this Truth Social post from March 21st, where he threatened to hit and obliterate Iranian power plants if the Strait of Hormuz wasn't reopened within 48 hours. 2 days later, he backed down from that, citing very good and constructive conversations with Iran. April 7th, he wrote on social media, quote, a whole civilization will die tonight if Iran didn't make a deal. Hours later, he agreed to a 2-week ceasefire. Here to explain is CBS News national security analyst Aaron MacLean. He's also host of the School of War podcast. So, Aaron, you wrote a new article in the Free Press. We share the same parent company, Paramount Skydance. And your column is called Mr. President. Your article in your column is called Mr. President, It's Time to Make Up Your Mind About Iran. You say Trump has failed to enforce the aggressive ultimatums he places at least 5 times since March, and that his empty threats embolden the regime. How do they embolden the regime?
Well, you laid it out very clearly there, Lindsay. The problem is not that the president is embarked on a military course of action and then he decides he wants to embrace diplomacy because a deal could be at hand. There's nothing inherently wrong with that at all. It's doing it 5 times in a row, and each time a real deal not actually being at hand that causes the problem. What it does is it saps his credibility. I don't think the Iranians at this point believe he is ever going to escalate. They could be wrong about that, by the way, but you can understand why they would come to that conclusion with all the tough talk being just that, talk over and over again. There may be good reasons not to escalate. We have munitions concerns. We can talk about stuff like that. But if you're going to do it, do it. And if you're not going to do it, don't say that you are.
It's kind of like raising a toddler, but I digress.
Truer words have never been spoken, Lindsay. Absolutely.
So you write also the president is left with only 2 options, the continued patient prosecution of economic warfare against Iran into the fall, or the president's oft-threatened escalation and sticking with it this time. What would be the risks of either approach?
Well, the risk of escalation, one, is that we do have a munitions issue. So you could see an escalatory fight becoming protracted, doing more damage to our already rather perilously low magazines. It could provoke, in fact, it almost certainly would provoke intensive Iranian retaliation across the region. So we can hit their power plants. They can hit Gulf state power plants as well. And it could become protracted. And you could see the Iranian regime still standing at the end of it. Those are pretty big risks, which leads a lot of people to prefer the course of essentially staying where we are. Economic pressure, maintaining the blockade. The risk there, of course, is it goes on sort of indefinitely. So I'm not saying that there's a shining correct answer here. I am saying that the constant threats followed by the lack of follow through is doing damage.
Will we ever get to a pre-February 28th Strait of Hormuz?
You know, that's a great question. It's very challenging to imagine that with the current regime still in power, with access to the resources that they've got. They've said over and over again that they're never going back to that. I think they mean it. So their circumstances would have to change, I think, for their view to change.
Aaron MacLean, if you don't join us again, no ice cream for a week.
Thanks, Lindsay. That's real strategic wisdom there.